Now, when I first started my entrepreneurial career, I'll admit that my businesses were my baby. I put everything in my entire being, including my heart and love, everything that's possible in a human physical form. And but I learned really quick in those first businesses. Like you can't, like, if it becomes your baby, so to speak, it will basically just rip you apart.
Hello and welcome today to Spyder Spotlight. This is where we focus and highlight one of our amazing team members. Today, we are going to spotlight our founder and fearless leader, Eric Howerton. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brooke.
This is your first time on camera, isn't it?
This is.
Your first time talking?
I'm extremely nervous.
You should be. You really should be. We have the hard-hitting questions that are a part of this amazing little fluff piece that we're doing right now. But so first things that we want to talk about is, what is your job title?
My job title is Founder and Chief Growth Officer.
CGO.
Mm-hmm. CGO. Everybody sees that and they're like, what's a CGO? What is a CGO?
So Chief Growth Officer, when we're really kind of trying to figure out what that title was, because JS became CEO a couple of years ago, which was wonderful because he's an excellent CEO.
Yes.
He is the man for the job, the person for the job. And then, so I was kind of looking at a few other titles. That's one of the benefits, right, of being an entrepreneur or owner of your business. You can kind of choose your own titles a little bit. But I did seriously consider it and was looking at Chief Marketing Officer, some other things, but I didn't, wanted it to be a little bit broader because I was also doing sales and doing a lot of other things within the company, obviously being here for a decade or so. So Chief Growth Officer made a lot of sense because everything I do is about growing the company. Whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's networking, whether, whatever it is, doing partnerships, et cetera.
Because it's your baby. You want it to grow.
Yeah, from the beginning, huh?
So the baby thing, I get the baby question a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So no, it's not my baby.
It's not your baby?
No. Now, when I first started my entrepreneurial career, I'll admit that my businesses were my baby. I put everything in my entire being, including my heart and love, everything that's possible in a human physical form. And but I learned really quick in those first businesses. Like you can't, like, if it becomes your baby, so to speak, it will basically just rip you apart.
Yeah. So, wait, are you saying
no one else's baby.
that the WhyteSpyder wasn't the first company that you started? That you started other things and they weren't as successful as this one?
No, absolutely not.
So you've had
Yes.
hardships.
Yes, I've had hardships.
Yeah,
and they absolutely were not as successful as WhyteSpyder, for sure.
What was your first one? What was your first?
First business was a magazine company called Get Out Magazine for Arkansas. So I didn't know. I mean, I was 22 years old when I started that thing. I had no idea what I was. Actually, the funny thing was I just had an idea or a vision, to see, to promote the outdoor recreation, education, nutrition of Arkansas. And so I set out on that path, and I really had no idea what I was doing. I actually didn't even know who I really was with that. I just saw that Arkansas needed a magazine to explore its Arkansas outdoors because it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
People don't really know much about it.
Like, I'm going to put pretty pictures.
Pretty pictures, good stories about resorts.
On, like, insanely high quality paper that was really expensive. No,
it really was. I mean, we did not sacrifice for quality. And, the cool thing about it was it was a good education to stay focused towards the readership or the audience, right? I mean, we didn't sacrifice quality for, penny pinching and all that type of stuff. Now, ultimately, we ran out of money. So, but, looking back, there's some things we could have done differently. But, I mean, from the first issue that we did, I mean, I got some sitting in my office, and they still look good. I mean, it's high quality production, good photography, good, pretty good writing. I mean, I would say pretty good just because I wrote some of that stuff. And, I wouldn't consider myself to be an
David's
expert
laughing
writer.
because he's our writer and he's seen your writing.
Yeah, he's judging. He's judging me.
I was just thinking when you were 22. Wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that you were that young when you did
Yeah, I was really young. Actually, the story kind of goes with Get Out Magazine. I had a buddy. So I was in college at Arkansas State University studying photojournalism. And I actually discovered photojournalism or photography because I was a couple of years before, when I was probably 19, I went out and became a whitewater raft guide in eastern Tennessee on the Pigeon River. And I'll never forget, like, I had no idea what the heck I wanted to do then, right? I was flailing, about like every 18, 19-year-old. Yeah. And so I just remember being out there in the Smoky Mountains, and we would go to this place called Midnight Hole and Big Creek. You can check it out if you're ever out there, eastern Tennessee. And we're actually around the North Carolina border of Tennessee. And I was out there, and I just really appreciated nature at the time. I was definitely nature boy Ric Flair, had long hair, enjoying life, and I remember just kind of hanging out in the creek and watching the water break through the rocks and getting really deep into the creation of planet Earth.
I need to take a picture of this.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was like, you know what? I would love to take pictures of water and creeks and waterfalls for the rest of my life. I'm going to get into photography.
Do that.
And so I remember going back to school in the fall after my summer adventure of being a whitewater raft guide, which the statement was, you can always, in whitewater rafting, you can always tip over, but you can never over tip.
That's,
Boom.
yeah,
Bring in the tips.
Bring in the tips, yeah.
Right, bring in the tips. There you go. And so even though when you did tip over while you're whitewater raft guiding, you got more tips. It was a paradox. It's kind of a symbolism of humanity.
Yeah, people want to be thrown out of the boat.
People want fear. They want to be put into the cruxes of danger zone. But anyway, so kind of derailed on that. But so I went back to school, found out about photography, and I got into that. And we were actually, it was a perfect time in life. I mean, and you can, you were around that time too, Brooke.
I too, yeah. You quit your job and then I got your job.
Right. Well, that's down the road. So don't jump ahead.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. So 19, 20 years old, go in, and we could go into the dark rooms, and we were still shooting on 35 millimeter film, and actually medium format in some cases. But I remember taking that class.
Color or black and white?
Black and white.
Okay, yeah.
Well, so you could do both.
I think they make color. Yeah, they have.
No, they did. They had slides.
Processing your own color, though. I used to do that. It's
brutal.
insane.
Yeah, it's brutal. But so we would go in the dark room, learn how to, get your film out from your canister, right? The 35 millimeter.
You put it in the bag.
Well, we rolled it up on these like little spools.
We had the spool, but you had to have it in the bag because you can't see it.
Well, we were going into the total dark room.
Oh, yeah. The total dark room. You'd do it in the dark.
You would just roll them up in those spools, right? This is where this podcast
is
going,
David.
man.
We're like,
I like it.
This is more interesting than anything. And Brooke and I are about the
piece. Yeah.
Because it was such a fantastic time in history, in all honesty. So in that dark room, rolling up your own film, and then you would put it in the little canister, right? And start putting chemicals in it. And you have to go through like 7 different chemical processes just to develop the roll of film. And so after that, then you'd have to dry it.
You dry the film.
Hang it, dry it.
You put it in your contact sheets.
Yes.
And you have to.
Then you lay it on
the table.
Make
a contact sheet. Then you had to look at that's how you saw how the pictures looked.
Yeah, the first time you saw your picture.
First time you saw your pictures.
Hey, so that's a wonderful point, David. All right, because David, you've been kind of living more in an instantaneous world. Back then,
like a little digital. Old school for me is like a digital camera with a screen on the back. That's old to me. Yeah,
it is. But here was the cool thing. So on that point, you would spend 30 minutes developing your film, and then you laid on the light table, and you finally got to see the images that you took. And for my experience I was taking images from 2 months before in the summertime, so I couldn't even see them until I developed them. But you would. The great thing about that is you relive all your experiences. Yeah. So what my pictures were of jumping around on rocks, taking pictures of waterfalls and whatever, but I could relive that entire experience sitting in the college on a light table, looking at these negatives. And then, like Brooke said, you'd take them in the enlargement room, right? And then you go through the whole process again.
You make it big. You can make them as big as you want, because a negative, that's why you never throw away your negatives.
Never throw away a negative, ever. So, but you would put it in the...
My parents are very mad at me about that. Because they ended up with all my negatives.
You go into a different light room or dark room, into the printing room, right? And there's all these enlargers in there. You'd stick the 35 millimeter in the enlarger, and then you have to kind of go through the whole photography process again because it becomes about light and dodge and burn in Photoshop.
Dodging and burning and getting your edges.
Yeah, getting your
Lose
edges. But you literally have to like put gobos up and just dodge and burn on the enlargement, you know, and then you have to go process it. That would take 10 minutes. And then you would see if you need to dodge and burn some more. So Photoshop, I mean, you know, it was nothing like the enlarged room, basically. But then
the dark room is what Photoshop is based on.
Basically, yeah.
Because they have dodge and burn and
then we did have scanners though. We had negative scanners. So that came out from Nikon. I remember it was a Nikon Nikon Scan 2000.
Oh, I had like a really high. It was a really good one. So I got my portfolio from college.
Yeah, you did. You'd sit in there for hours and just scan your pictures.
But it's scanning it into like an analog machine, like into the enlarger.
No, it was into a computer.
Okay,
yeah, it was Photoshop was out. I mean, Photoshop was out in the 90s. Like by the time we were doing.
Yeah, but it's really limited. Like
it was really limited. Yeah.
It was basically to take your scanned image and kind of manipulate it just barely. I mean, you had a clone tool. I remember learning about that in school. You had some dodge and burn stuff and
History brush wasn't a thing yet.
Nah,
that's my favorite. I love that thing.
Yeah, that was the thing. Is like it was kind of a replication of the dark room or the enlargement room because in Photoshop, if you didn't do it right, you couldn't go back in history and change things.
No, there was no history.
You have to start all over.
Yeah, you're like, the fixer was bad, and now my picture is gray, so I got to start over.
So that was awesome. You know, I mean, that's checking out those negatives. Then I got into transparencies and slides, positives. So, like the slide rolls, right? They were higher, they had better saturation in the actual negative, AKA negative, right? And so I started getting into that, and Brooke brought up doing color. So black and white processing was one thing, but you start dipping into color processing. I mean, that's nuts, it is nuts. I mean, it really was. But I got into slides. I would use Fujifilm 50s and 25s that were, you had to have a lot of light to burn that film, basically. But that's where you got a lot of the great nature photography is that they get all that saturation and stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's so good they wrote a song about it, Kodachrome.
Oh, did they?
Beatles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's true. So, I mean, that was...
Yeah, it is true. I didn't just make that up.
Good job, Brooke.
Thanks, you're welcome.
So, getting in, all that photography, spending all that time in the dark room, I mean, really became an appreciator of how the process worked, right? And then take it a step further, right? Let's go into... I've worked for the newspaper back in college, too, and I was fortunate to see the time of when we would actually still burn plates for the paper.
I've never saw that. And then
you didn't?
No.
So it was basically the same thing. Like you would go in, and you would have folks they were called paginators, right? And they would literally cut and paste. They would print out a story or a headline, paste it on a huge template of a newspaper, a big white piece of paper. And then so you would cut out all these things and all these pictures, and you'd paginate it, and then you'd stick it on the wall, and then we would literally shoot that pagination with a huge camera that would produce a negative the negative was huge, about that big, And then you would take that negative, and then you would go burn a plate, right?
For the printing press, for the
printing
press, yeah.
And what was the coolest art and craft I saw though was like there was at some part of the process. It's hard for me to remember, but after we produced the negative from the pagination, we would go get what we called rubies. And they were just these like translucent ruby, like plastic material that you would stick over, and you would cut out the cyan, then you cut out the magenta, the yellow and the black.
Yeah, because CMY and K.
CMYK, and then you'd have to print. Then you had to create 4 different plates for CMYK, and that was a process. But there was this guy,
and you get it off. That's why if you see a newspaper picture, they still do it today, and it's a little off.
Yeah,
they didn't line it all up right.
If it's just a smidget off, it would
make
jack
your
it
picture
all
look
up.
like crap.
Yeah,
and you were like, it was a great picture in digital. You should.
But
see
the greatest art was this guy named Jody. I still remember his name. I'm a young kid, right, working in this press room, and this guy Jody's been there for 20-something years. But he would slap those rubies up there, and you would take an X-Acto knife, literally.
What time is it?
You would literally.
Oh, cool. We got time. You got.
I know.
Time.
Yeah.
Please tell us more stories. We got more questions though.
Alone. I mean, this might just be a photo processing.
This is, I know. I was like, I
like
mean,
a
we
back-
can talk
this is
about
like-
WhyteSpyder too.
It's like
a
a
little bit.
blast.
It is a blast
from
from
the
the.
past.
This is a serious blast from the past that I remember, which is how old I am.
But I think it does give us credibility because there's a lot of root to. I mean, all these things lead up to what we're doing today. I mean, because we know actually the source and the root, which is, I think, one of the greatest distinctions from WhyteSpyder versus a lot of the other companies. But the story lasts for 20-something years, so we'll be here.
So
for
when
a while.
you were working in a dark room,
hold on,
Amazon.
hold on. I wanna
Oh
talk-
my
hold
gosh.
on.
Okay, tell your story about Jody.
Yeah, thank you. So Jody would take out this X-Acto knife, right? Like literally what you get at Walmart, and put those rubies up, and he would just sit there and just outline like these pictures. And I remember, Dillard's always had huge full-page ads on the back of the newspapers, but he would just sit there and like perfectly trim out like pictures of models, wearing clothes and stuff. And I mean, it was amazing. And I'd be up there just like, it'd take me 45 minutes just to get around. And he'd just come over and correct me and take my ruby, throw it away, and start anew and just do it in 5 seconds. But it was awesome. I mean, but you get to see that root, like why things work, and this, dots per inch, and your CMYK, like Brooke was talking about, how everything overlays. And so as the point of it is, in that part of history, scanners were coming out, digital cameras. I remember the first time a digital camera came out and the newspaper bought it. Cost $16,000 for one camera. Yeah. And it would give, like, you could blow it up about that big.
Yeah,
it didn't need to be good quality.
Yeah.
But as a DSLR digital, so I mean, it was awesome. It was revolutionary. Then the Macs were coming out. I mean, back in the day when I was in college, we had these Macs, but only the newspaper and creative people used them. The iMacs, remember the ones with the translucent backing and stuff? Yeah, those were first coming out.
Did those even have image stuff on there, or is it just text? Because I remember my dad had, it was a Mac, and it was just like a terminal, basically. It was like a text,
Yeah, these were when
translucent backs, they had the desktop and stuff, kind of, right?
Yeah, and I mean, they had a little bit of power. I mean, we were using Quark Express for layout. Adobe InDesign wasn't even in.
Yeah, InDesign had one, and by the time I made it to newspapers, actually, when I got there, they just had transitioned to InDesign, so it was new.
That was a big deal because Quark Express dominated the entire publishing world.
And then Adobe was like, check this out. And everyone's like, oh, it's so much easier.
But I mean, it goes to show kind of like living through that, just seeing the technological advances. And fortunately, I was young enough to where I just kind of kept up just because it was cool. But I mean, you look at it like Quark Express was huge. It's kind of like today. We see retailers that are huge or technologies that are big, and then another one comes in, swoops, and takes care of it. I think that all leads down to, user experience and just finding little niches within business, that make you better. And a lot of times the big folks get a little complacent, and that's how they get beat out. Kind of like Western Union did by AT&T back in the 40s, because Western Union didn't believe that the telephone would be more important than a telegraph.
Yeah.
Wrong. But we've seen it so much, right? The evolution of the way businesses go. So,
right, David, do you have a question, like a burning question that you want to ask Eric? What do you most want to know about Eric that you don't already know?
So do you have any hobbies that would be surprising to anybody on the team? Anything you're keeping from us? Like I said, there's no icebreakers, but anything below the surface.
I would say that probably one of my secrets would be just going outside and just shutting up.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if that's a hobby, but
you stop talking?
I do.
Whoa.
Yeah,
that is a secret part.
I do stop talking. Actually, I do it frequently. I do it a lot. And when I'm at home, I do it. In the evening, especially when all my girls have gone to bed and they all leave me alone.
They leave you alone?
Yeah.
Including your wife? Or you
they all
talk to her?
They all go on their separate ways, and I'm just standing in the middle going, where did everybody go? Nobody wants to hang out anymore. So I'll go out, but I'll go outside. I'll get outside a lot and just kind of sit there. I guess you'd call it meditation. But I mean, I'm not like set up like the postcards do. But I do go out there and just kind of shut up and listen to some crickets and some frogs chirping, and watch ants get bit by a tick. I always love it when that happens.
You get bit by a tick?
Yeah, man. I mean, we need that. Listen to the wind. I mean, it's crazy like how much we don't shut up in this world. And we don't listen. And I mean, the funny thing is like what I realized through some of that practice, there's a million things that I've learned by shutting up. But one of the greater things is like, how chaotic this world is, with all this information overload. And, we want to have this silence, like, you go to the house, it's really quiet or wherever, but we're actually not designed for that. Because if you go out in nature, the way that everything was created, it's never quiet. It's very rarely that you ever be outside and it's just like completely silent. It's actually kind of an eerie experience. I mean, I've been out, deer hunting in the past, and there's been times in the morning when it becomes absolutely radio silent. And it's just like, everything's on high alert, including every animal, squirrel, deer. Everything is like, everything slows down, and it's just like, there's like a fear that comes into all the living creatures, including ourselves. So we don't really go off silence, but when the wind's blowing, or, things are moving around, and I think that what I realized is that there's just a lot of life out there in the outdoors. I mean, you might think, walk by, on a trail or something, but you're not realizing the infinite amount of life that's sitting there right underneath your feet with all the ants doing their things. I mean, everything's working. That's the other thing too that I learned. Right.
So we're going a lot of things. You've learned a lot of things
from
in your
ants.
life.
Yeah,
I have. Yeah. Well, but if you think about it, like
the ants are
really
intelligent, though.
Yeah, the ants, all the insects, nothing ever stops working. And so as humans, we kind of feel like that we can kind of chill a lot of times, like we've earned the right to chill out, and we're all kind of going for this some sort of end goal to where we're just not doing anything. Yeah. That's actually misery to us, But what we have to do is really appreciate like where we're at and the work that we got to do. Work is great for us. It's actually what we designed to do. I think that's, I'm going to go way far with that.
You're going to go way far. That's good.
Slow it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
What time is it? Oh, we have some time. What are you most excited for? What are you most looking forward to accomplishing in 2022?
Just continue to solve problems. I mean, honestly, like, we've had a lot of great success here at the company, great people. We have a great partners in our sister companies and our parent company, Essential. Everybody's awesome. All the people are awesome. And what I'm really excited about is that just when you have more folks like that and more tech and more expertise and knowledge and experience, put it all together, I mean, you can start solving even more problems. And, the acceleration of that is really cool. I mean, being able to tap into each other's resources. I mean, like even going to shows and things of that nature. I mean, like instead of us going to Shop Talk by ourselves, and now we're a few of us against thousands of different people, there's more of us to go there and collaborate and have conversations and ideate and solve problems. And I just think that what we're going to do as we integrate more and we understand more about what each other's doing, what the left and right hands are doing, it's just going to empower us to solve even bigger problems, which the retail world needs that. I mean, that's the whole point.
Solving problems. Is that why you created WhyteSpyder?
Absolutely. Yeah, even like back in the Get Out magazine days, what I talked about, right? And then I had another marketing company and a couple other businesses, I think, that flailed and flopped and whatever. But it's always, it's to me, it's never been about necessarily money. I mean, I've never started a business so that I could gain more financially, or I see that financial opportunity. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to disagree with that. I mean, actually, everybody that I talk to disagrees with that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you need money to live.
Well, yeah, of course, you need to be able to, but then that stuff takes care of itself. It always has for myself, at least. I mean, it hasn't been necessarily a financially glorious ride every second, but I've always somehow been able to make ends meet, even though it might get tight or risky. And some people can't tolerate that. But what I always did was like, hey, there is a need in the market. That's really the source. So when you define entrepreneurship, they see a need in the market to solve, and they also take on the financial risk. And that's a lot different than even an investor or a manager, So the entrepreneur, like when I was talking about the Get Out magazine, I didn't know who I was. I had no idea I was an entrepreneur. I didn't have a classification for myself. All I knew is that I saw a market need, which I saw that people needed to see all the outdoor activities in Arkansas and know that they're there and have a place to go escape. And I wanted to tell that story. But I didn't build a financial model that made sure that I was making profits and all my investors were making, no, didn't do that. I was get outside and do this. And I knew that people needed that, or I saw that they needed that. And so I went out to fulfill that. And actually, it was really successful from a subscriber standpoint. When you look at the business of Get Out Magazine, it was highly successful from there was a market of people that wanted to see those pictures and read those stories. They subscribed to them. I mean, that part of it was very true, but all the business side, I didn't have the foresight to really see what was going on. So I see a lot of success from that, but that's always been my driver. So it's still today, right? Yeah. There's still major problems for retailers, for suppliers, right? That in all honesty, and you've heard me say it a lot in the company, the things that we do at WhyteSpyder help a supplier or a human that's working with a supplier that's actually been living in chaos. And they can't, there's information overload. There's risk all around them. Everything's changing, evolving, especially when you bring in COVID, which just accelerated all the reality that we had. But the work that we do actually helps them with their job. When you help somebody with their job, you make their life more efficient, you save them time, and you take away stress. That's solving a really basic problem. And when you solve those problems, people subscribe. They tell other people, hey, my life is, if our software and our services can make somebody's life better at the individual level and have them perform better, reduce the stress and save them time, that's the value. People pay for that value. They don't pay for things. There's a lot of the things that have gone on in this industry where people pay for things that seemingly give value, but you get into it. We've all experienced this. You buy something that you think is valuable, and especially software, and you get into it and it doesn't do anything for you. It's even more frustrating. Like you actually damage that brand. You damage your chances to ever come back to them. And that happens a lot. There's a lot of just bouncing around, and it's difficult for suppliers out there to find the right solution, whether it's software or services. And so I say all that because there are still a majority amount of suppliers that are still facing the same problems from 5 years to a decade ago. There's more problems that are happening every day. They're coming down the pike. Can we provide the services and software to help them be successful individually in their career so they can do the things that they actually are passionate to do? And I have a big passion to that.
And the answer is yes, we can provide those solutions.
Okay, Brooke,
and we'll keep providing those solutions.
Like you just threw out a sales pitch.
I'm like, wow. We do marketing. That is our job.
Yeah, it's good.
We gotta put it in right at the end because we are at the end.
Oh man, we're just starting good.
We're just getting going. Yeah.
9:29.
Eric, thank you so much for joining us today, Eric. And we didn't even need to do icebreaker questions to get him talking because it's like you've done this before.
We can skip all that stuff. Time. Yeah.
Secret hobby though, that was an interesting one.
I don't even think we can classify that as a hobby. That's just.
Sure.
That's what Eric does. Eric sometimes stops talking.
I do. And I don't want to stop right now, but it looks like that.
We do. Unfortunately, we got to wrap it up and move on to the next one. But thank you all for being here.
People, if you really wanted this to continue to go on, please leave a comment. And
we'll bring him back and do another show.
Just say don't ever stop that again.
Don't ever stop. We'll just have a live stream of just Eric talking about the dark room.
I could do that.
We could talk a lot about dark rooms. Yeah.
It's fun. It's foundational.
Yeah.
It's foundational.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank y'all.